Rumors started coming just off of this long holiday weekend that JD Vance is pulling out of the 2028 Republican presidential ticket. It's still unconfirmed, but what's not unconfirmed is a skyrocketing approval with Marco Rubio, who is going to be one of the two choices going into 2028. Let me get you all the details on what Marco Rubio is up to and how the American people are ready for his message.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio, why is this man smiling?
Why is this man smiling? Because his chances to be the Republican nominee in 2028 are up like a rocket taken off from Cape Canaveral. Look at this. Okay, according to the Kalshi prediction market, look at this. Chance that Rubio is the 2028 presidential nominee for the Republicans. It was just 11% back at the beginning of this year. Look at this. Up like that rocket I was mentioning from Cape Canaveral. It's up now to 30% chance. That is nearly 3 times the chance that it was at the beginning of the year. All of a sudden, the people who are putting their money where their mouths are really liking Rubio's chances compared to the beginning of the year that he will, in fact, be the Republican standard bearer come 2028.
That's a big change in a relatively short period of time. So, of course, to become the Republican nominee, you've got to win in the Republican primaries. So how do Republican voters feel?
This, to me, is one of the more interesting stats that I have brought you, because just take a look at the different Republican officials that are, in the Trump administration. Look at this, the net approval rating. Guess who has the highest net approval rating? It's Marco Rubio at plus 77 points. That beats JD Vance, the VP, at plus 69. Beats Pete Hegseth, who's at plus 63. Way ahead of Patel, who's at plus 49. You just see it here. Marco Rubio.
See, and this is interesting. So the question is, why is Rubio leading the charge with net approval ratings? I think the answer is this. He's had highly visible and highly successful initiatives that he's been tasked to lead. It started off at the Panama Canal. If you remember, at the very beginning of Donald Trump's second term, he tasked Rubio to solve that equation and to get China out. He also tasked Rubio with Venezuela. And now Rubio's extremely active of what's going on with the NATO infrastructure and our commitment and moving troops. He's very involved in Iran, and he's also very involved in, don't let this slip under your radar, with Cuba. Cuba will be falling. And the only question is what's going to be left and what kind of partnership are they going to make with America? I can assure you that Rubio's been extremely active there. And the last sleeper thing that we can't forget, again, it was mentioned and we haven't heard about it in quite a while, is Greenland. Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth, that's why his numbers are up here, were active in establishing and getting back a presence with the American military on 3 different military bases now that are American controlled in Greenland. They needed to get access to that. That was what Donald Trump was getting at when he was saying, we're going to take Greenland come hell or high water. That was Hegseth and Rubio. Now the question, though, is why are we hearing these rumors with JD Vance potentially taking his name off the ticket? There's some details there that we're going to talk about as this video goes on.
Simply put, is the most popular Republican in the Trump administration, besides the president himself, and also the most popular member, if you zone in a little bit more, of the cabinet as well. So part of what the prediction markets are following is the actual polling data, which shows that Marco Rubio is really popular with Republicans at this point.
Of course, what people are looking at here, mostly, I would say, is the difference between Rubio and JD Vance, who, for a long time has been seen as a frontrunner and probably still is. Nevertheless, Rubio more liked among Republicans. What about overall?
Yeah, okay, so you see this Republican edge right here. But I think part of the argument that Marco Rubio would make is that he's more popular than the other Republicans. He could actually win in a general election. And what you can see here is, again, who's the most popular person in the Trump administration among the officials? Look at this. It's Marco Rubio running well ahead of the pack here. Yeah, he's underwater, but not by that much. Pretty much all politicians these days are underwater. And he's nearly 10 points more popular than JD Vance is, and certainly way more popular than Hegseth or Patel is.
Okay, so say Secretary of State Rubio isn't the Republican nominee? What are the chances, or what are the picture markers saying he ends up with some other gig?
Yeah, okay. He could be the VP nominee. The chance that he's the VP nominee in 2020, 24% chance. He's the market leader on this one. So either way, you add the 24 with the 30, there's a greater than 50% chance that he's in fact on the Republican ticket.
I do think it's interesting that the prediction markets are saying that he has a better chance of being the presidential nominee than the vice presidential nominee.
It is true. At this point, those numbers have flipped.
So those numbers have flipped, but ultimately there's a little sneaky message now that we're getting that JD Vance is pulling out of the race. And the question is why? What I've heard, some of the murmurs that I've heard, is that JD Vance, with the action and activity in Iran, has been wanting to get this finished and was really hesitant to even get this started as far as the offensive military front in Iran, and that didn't go over very well. So I think this rumor isn't true, that JD Vance absolutely is still going to make a run. I think that's true. I think the ultimate spin that we're hearing is that he's also been one of the few that's had the backbone to say this isn't where we need to be putting our focus, and if we're going to do it, we need to do it quick and get out. Rubio has had more of an offensive front and message, and certainly Hegseth has. So I think this spike in Rubio that we're seeing is just momentum coming off of those couple projects that he was tasked with. The bigger question is, what's happening with JD Vance? I think anybody can fairly conclude that Vance and Rubio right now are absolutely the lead candidates, and they probably will be going into the back half of Donald Trump's second term, getting ready for the 2028 ticket. And we know how this goes, right? There's going to be horse trading and jockeying, and each one of them are diplomats. So they're not going to go at each other at all. They're going to play nicey nice. But again, JD Vance has a bit more of an America First position on the activity overseas, and Marco Rubio has been full bore trying to implement the Monroe Doctrine, which is controlling the Northern Hemisphere, where America is, and getting aggressive with our military activity overseas, specifically with some of the interests and activity around Iran and with our partner in Israel. That there's no question that Marco Rubio's been a fan of that. So where does this settle? I'm curious what your thoughts are. Do you think there's any truth with JD Vance pulling his name off of the ticket? I don't think so. I think this is far from over. I think there's a lot of runway for both of these candidates, and I think ultimately it's reasonable for all of us to start to ask this question. What does the America First and MAGA party look like when Donald Trump is termed out? Who is going to be that torchbearer, that champion of America First going into 28? Right now, I love JD Vance. I think he's the lead dog. I think Marco Rubio's doing a fantastic job, but he's also got a little swampy history in his past, certainly when he was in the Senate. We'll see how this shakes out. If you've yet to subscribe to the Chris Locke Show, please do so. We'd love to have you along for the ride. And if you like videos like this, hit the like button. It helps the algorithm get this message out to more people like you and I. We'll see you in the very next video. Be sure to like and subscribe to the Chris Locke Show for the latest America First news, conservative commentary, and the stories that mainstream media refuses to cover. These two videos right up here, they're going to be next. Pick your favorite. I'll see you over there.